Have you ever thought about taking a DNA test? Well, what if you gathered all your friends and all your neighbours and took one together? What would you find? What if you have unknown royal ancestors? Or you are not the ethnicity you think you are? What if that person next door you've known for years is actually your cousin?
How well do you know your neighbours? The secrets to our past lie within all of us, hidden in our genetic code. For the first time ever, 4 Australian towns are being offered mass DNA tests. Tests that will unveil wild hidden chapters in our history. I've got your DNA results back.
Oh my goodness, what?
He was quite a well-known criminal.
What a story. It's incredible.
We actually have some of his own words.
Really?
And we believe that that is your granddad.
It's amazing, it really is.
The extraordinary results reveal us and our nation as never seen before.
All of you have Mediterranean DNA.
Yes!
Indian ethnicity. African DNA.
I thought that I was French.
How does the story of each town or neighbourhood fit into the wider history of the nation?
You all have convict ancestry. It'll change how you see Australia. It'll change how you see yourself.
This is overwhelming.
It's wonderful.
This time, we're in Surry Hills. An eclectic mix of cultures, lifestyles,
And of rumours.
When I moved in, there happened to be a murder at the front of my building.
Your mum's an accomplice.
Yeah, wow. So that's my granddad.
Wow, that is so cool.
I'm Mark Fennell, and we are pushing the boundaries of science to unlock the past.
The results are in.
So what are the secrets hiding in your DNA? All right, let's do it.
ordinary towns with extraordinary discoveries that reveal who we are as a nation. This is the secret DNA of us.
One word to describe Surry Hills.
Very friendly. Very eclectic. I love it.
If Surry Hills was a character, I would describe it as...
Well, I guess we're a bit eccentric.
Dynamic.
Pretentious.
Famous but not really talented. Yep.
God, I would say Surry Hills would be a drag queen.
People are just fun.
Oh, yes, some dreadful things we used to do.
They are on a different planet sometimes.
Well, I always say to people, if you're bored in Surry Hills, you're doing it wrong.
Gang wars, law-breaking ladies, and kick-ass coffee. Welcome to Surry Hills. Now, the history of Surry Hills in New South Wales, it is a roller coaster.
Surry Hills sits on the land of the Gadigal people, who inhabited the southeastern lands of Sydney Harbour for over 60,000 years. Following British colonisation, Gadigal people were forced from their harbourside camping grounds to the settlement fringes. In Surry Hills, Cleveland Paddocks was a campsite until the mid-19th century when the railway arrived, and once again, Gadigal people had to move on. The first Irish in Surry Hills worked as house servants on the big estates that covered the area. The Chinese population here grew in the 1880s, setting up businesses around Sydney's vibrant produce market. By 1900, slums and crime had become synonymous with the neighbourhood, and gangs run amok. Following World War II, Europeans rewrote the story of Surry Hills. Now, public housing sits opposite some of the most expensive real estate in Australia. We've invited a section of Surry Hills residents to find out what's hiding in this melting pot of DNA.
It was interesting coming in here, looking at all these people. I'm thinking, are these all Surry Hills people? Why don't I know more?
I don't think there's anything I'm afraid of. I'm like, bring it. I want to know.
So my name's Mark Fennell. It's my honour to be here on Gadigal land in beautiful sunny Sydney, and I'm really appreciative of you coming out today. I have a theory that in this room are secrets. Secrets that tie you all together. Who's prepared to be surprised out of this process? Yeah.
Joining me is journalist Ray Johnston.
I am here for the gossip. I'm going to be digging through historical records and really getting to the heart of what connects you all individually to Surry Hills.
And Brad Argent, an ancestry expert.
So I will be looking at everybody's DNA in this room, analysing that, and I'll also be taking a bit of a look at your family history. And sometimes those two things will be kind of the same, but sometimes they could be quite different.
Who has been here, show of hands, for 20 years or more? Nice. So you remember when Surry Hills was actually cheap?
Back in those days, there were a lot of drugs.
So the Clock Hotel was a very colourful place.
Oh, it was a mad place.
You know, the Hells Angels used to drink there.
You know, I've been shouted at by meth heads and I wasn't allowed to walk around Surry Hills at all.
When I moved in, there happened to be a murder at the front of my building. So, I much prefer it now that that doesn't happen anymore.
You prefer that there's no murder?
Yeah.
What a bold position to take.
It's better now.
What about those of you who are new to the area, so maybe in the last 5 years? You're the rich people, got it. But you know where the good coffee is, and I appreciate that. I will be asking for tips later. Sounds like we have a lot to discover, so we're going to ask you to fill out a questionnaire and give us a DNA sample. Who's ready?
Is there some skeletons in the closet I need to know about? Who else is out there?
I'm excited for it. There will be half-brothers and half-sisters, I'm sure.
The results from these saliva tests will help us uncover any unknown relatives in the group and reveal personal stories that will change what we know about Surry Hills history.
So what do you think we're going to find when we look at your DNA?
I have a feeling it's 100% Ghanaian, but if I'm going to be surprised, potentially there's maybe Egyptian or maybe Middle Eastern.
Well, I was born here.
Yes.
And I've lived here for 24 years.
Is there something particular that you're looking for?
I want to find out more of my Chinese side. They hide all the information.
What do you know from the outset?
Well, just recently I found out that my great-great-great-grandfather discovered the 6th biggest nugget in Australia.
Nugget of what?
Not chicken.
Mate, you need to get on that.
And where's the money?
Yeah, right. Let's solve that one.
That's what we need to find.
In the questionnaire, we ask each person what they think they know about their ethnicity. They can tick just one or many. With Irish convicts arriving on the First Fleet, it's understandable that 24% believe they have Irish DNA. Italians are part of Australia's post-war immigration program, and so 14% think they are Italian. The Chinese first came for the gold rush from the 1850s, and so 12% marked Chinese. Eastern Europeans arrived in big numbers after World War II, so 14% think that is in their DNA.
It's been wonderful talking to all of you, getting to understand this metro melting pot. That seems to be a common theme coming through. But until then, we'll see you in a few weeks to give you the results. Thanks, everybody.
Here in Surry Hills, the quirkiness of its people is reflected in its urban layout. Skinny streets take weird turns and lead to sneaky laneways. And that's largely thanks to feuding colonial landowners and greedy developers in the 19th century. But from the 1890s onward, this network of laneways provided the perfect location for gangs to prowl and for crime to thrive. Violence between gangs was common, often deadly, and from 1916 up until the 1950s, laws banning alcohol after 6 p.m. led to a black market in booze. And at the centre of it all was Kate Lee and her illegal drinking venues here in Surry Hills. And our questionnaire has revealed one of Kate's living relatives.
My grandmother's great aunt was Kate Lee, some sly grog queen from the 1930s, who lived in Surry Hills on Devonshire Street.
But that is all that Tim knows, and so he's joined our DNA group to learn more about his notorious relative.
Hey, Mark.
Hello.
Great to see you.
Nice to see you too.
How you doing?
Good, I'm really good. I'm glad you could make time for this.
Thank you. Great to be here. I grew up in Dubbo and moved to Sydney in 2000 and went to school at the Newtown High School of Performing Arts. Eventually, I've met a whole bunch of people, made friends, and ended up living on Cleveland Street. I wanted that community and that, sense of belonging more than anything, and I've been so proud of myself to find that within, Sydney and Surry Hills.
But Tim isn't the only relative of Kate Lee that we've found. Kate Lee's great niece also lives in Surry Hills.
Narelle?
Yeah.
Hello.
Oh, hi.
I'm Mark.
Hi, Mark.
And this is Tim.
Hi, Narelle.
Hi, Tim.
While Tim doesn't know that much about Kate, Narelle, she knows some stuff.
My parents looked after her in her final years, so Kate Lee lived upstairs. My parents were the greengrocers downstairs. What? Kate Lee's my great aunt. What's going on? And I was about 3.5 when she died.
So do you want to know how you're both related to Kate Lee?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. I was so excited.
Narelle. Kate Lee, she has these two siblings. So on this side, you have William.
Yep.
If you follow down William, you get
my dad.
your dad, and there's you.
Me.
But she also has this other brother, John. If you follow John down, you get you and Patricia, and eventually...
My dad.
Ken.
Right.
So you two are cousins.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting, isn't it?
So now you both know that you're related. Kate Lee means something to the two of you. Why is she such a big deal?
I guess I grew up in Dubbo in central west New South Wales, which is where Kate was from, when she was younger. Nana Glore, she would tell us the stories about how Kate would come back to Dubbo in the furs and, big car and all this sort of stuff for family occasions or whatever. And she can remember that happening, when she was younger.
There is this popular memory of Kate Lee as the queen of the underworld. Is that how you remember her?
No, not really. No, I don't. I've actually got a photo down here. And that's how I feel I remember her, like this lovely, loving, caring, quiet, calm, older grandmother type. And that is me in that photo.
Narelle and her parents lived just a few doors away from Kate until she died. And Narelle has inherited this vast collection of family photos and stories that she's never publicly shared until today.
And that was one of her husbands. I love that car.
So Tim can discover a personal side to his criminal ancestor.
There's a wedding?
Yes, it's one of her weddings. It's a bit radical, that is.
I love the confetti.
Yeah. I've got a really lovely, funny story of my mum. My dad brought her in to meet Kate, and all of a sudden, bang at the door. It was the police doing a raid. And my father said, June, just sit down on that box. Don't move, don't say anything. Kate was sitting there cool as a cucumber on the sofa. My dad was standing there, and they just raided the place. Then they left, and Kate said, June, get up. Just like that. And then she flicked the lid open, and it was full of the alcohol, which is what they were looking for. And my mother nearly, she said, I felt the blood drain out of my body.
Your mum's an accomplice.
Yeah.
Throughout her lifetime, Kate had 107 convictions and served 13 jail sentences. Until 1955, when the 6 p.m. closing laws were abolished. Kate Lee's sly grog empire crumbled. She was also bankrupt with a tax evasion bill. But our research has uncovered this precious record of Kate's character that is new to both Tim and Narelle.
We came across this It's actually from her own testimony in court.
Despite her reputation, Kate Lee was also allegedly quite generous with the Surry Hills community.
Queen of the underworld? Pull your head in, mate. Queen of the underdog is more like it. Ask the kids around Redfern and Surry Hills about me. Ask the old pensioners. In fact, ask anyone who's ever been in any kind of stripe and come to me for help. I've been in the big money in my day and I don't deny it, but it went easier than it came. And now I'm broke, leading the quiet life. Then why do some people still call me Queen of the Underworld? Maybe because I've been crowned it so often. But you never tell a cop too much about yourself when you're in my old line of business.
So she was quite humble in the end, you know, for that, and I don't think many people know that.
No, even though she had that identity, that there was a whole nother side of her.
Are there other questions that you are both really interested in?
I'm interested to find out how our family came to Australia.
So I'd like to know more about her siblings and that Dubbo side.
All right, well, let me see what we can find. Tim and Narelle's common ancestor, Kate Lee, kind of gives you a sense of the gritty history of Surry Hills. But over the years, no matter how gentrified it may look today, that personality has infused these streets.
I lived there in the 80s and 90s, and that was pretty seedy back then.
Artists, drug addicts.
A lot of live music, and there was always a lot of art.
Immigrant families, young families starting out because the property was cheap.
But it was a very different suburb back then.
Very different.
You know, people were more tolerant of noise back then, I'd say.
It was rat bags, you know?
Oh, mate, you weren't a band unless you had a house in Surry Hills.
No, exactly.
It was a very exciting place, actually.
Well, we never said hills, it was just slurry.
I actually spent my childhood here in these streets. So my dad was a photographer, and that building up there was his studio. But the rest of the building was all rag trade. So as a kid, you just wander from floor to floor, and on one level there'd be the Vietnamese women sewing, on another level there'd be the Eastern European women sewing, and it was like the United Nations in the streets of Surry Hills.
Which is what brings us to Sasha, who grew up here back in the 1980s.
This is the streets that I grew up on. This is our playground, in a sense, as well as the back lane.
When Sasha was born, their parents had just bought a rundown place in this corner of Surry Hills.
I felt incredibly free as a kid.
Yeah. And this area became Sasha's playground for decades.
I always bring our bikes up here and fly down there as fast as possible.
That's great.
Yeah, yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
It would be a perfect playground.
Yeah.
Were you friends with other families?
A whole bunch of migrants, so Greeks, Turks. We'd come pouring out of house and we'd play cricket. We'd ride bikes, we'd ride skateboards.
Sounds like a lovely childhood here.
Yeah. No, it was. Look, I love it. It's home.
Back when you were growing up here, did you feel like the area was safe for kids?
Yeah, yes and no. So this is the thing where we developed our street smarts.
Now, Sasha's interest in their family's past has become urgent.
I've come back to be closer to my parents because they're dying. And my Russian history, I do not know a lot about. One of the things, there's a big hole on my mother's side of the family.
So it's the Russian side of the family.
As I sort of got into being a teenager, I'd start to ask questions when my grandmother would come.
Mm-hmm.
And she'd say, oh, I've got so many things to tell you. And it's like, well, tell me. And it didn't happen. And then, of course, she died. Similar thing is happening to my mum. Again, sort of getting information out of her.
Remarkably, Sasha is descended from Russian nobility, and the extraordinary journey made by their grandparents to reach Australia has left many hidden details, until now.
There is a story behind your family. Do you want to find out what it is?
Sure do.
Come with me.
Okay.
Growing up in the outskirts of Western Sydney, being a gay man was not the most safest place. I used to come out here every weekend and party with the local LGBTQ+ scene. I knew that it was safer out here to live out here than it was out west.
It holds a very special place in my heart. I came to Surry Hills 11 years ago as a straight man, and after living there for a few years and feeling more comfortable in my own skin, I had the confidence to come out.
It was right here in Surry Hills in 1978 when the very first Mardi Gras was held. And in fact, Surry Hills has always been one of Australia's epicentres for the LGBTQIA+ community, including Tim. Now, Tim first arrived here from Dubbo in regional New South Wales over 13 years ago.
When I moved to Sydney, I didn't really have a lot of LGBT friends. But by my 30th birthday, I had a float that was called Tina and Her Turners. Once I'm in drag, in the makeup, in the look, I'm still me, but I've got a little bit more pizzazz and personality because I feel like this is, you know, like a superhero costume. So you can sort of act in amazing ways without having to feel self-conscious about it. Thank you. Drag has been a way for me to build a community and build a family here in Sydney and in Surry Hills. Thank you. I feel like I've assimilated quite well.
Tim's community is still growing now he's met his cousin Narelle, with whom he shares a criminal ancestor, the underworld figure Kate Lee. Now, when I last saw them, Tim and Narelle wanted to know more about Kate's family. So, where better to meet them than Kate's old house?
So, this is the place. This is 212 Devonshire Street. And I love that it comes with a plaque about Kate Lee.
Yeah.
The code word had to be, is mum in? Shall we go see them?
Let's go in.
It was here, at 212 Devonshire Street.
Hello.
Hey.
How are you? How are you?
That Kate used to sell illegal alcohol to those in the know. But the extent of Kate's family and their lawlessness has been hidden from Tim and Narelle until now.
So I've got here the family tree. So we can see Kate and her siblings.
So 11 siblings.
So we have Joseph. This is his mugshot and his court transcripts for his convictions here. Take a look at that.
Native place, Dubbo. Larceny.
He was quite a well-known criminal. There is indecent exposure, there is common assault, there is trespassing, larceny. He was pretty well known in the courts.
Oh, but you missed the best one. The horse.
Illegally using a horse.
He illegally uses the horse and then he steals... What is it? He steals a saddle afterwards.
He steals a saddle as well.
Right, okay.
I like, trade or occupation, that he was a jockey.
He was a jockey.
5'7", that's
quite tall for a jockey.
You know,
the horses were bigger back then.
Moving up the family tree, Kate and Joseph's father, Timothy, also turned up in the archives on the wrong side of the law.
So he was done for breaking and entering and stealing in Dubbo.
And there's a bunch of witnesses there. So he wasn't very discreet.
No, not at all.
Timothy's larceny may have been learned from his father, Thomas.
Thomas was transported to New South Wales from Dublin.
Oh, wow.
As a convict.
Yep.
Or his grandfather, Patrick. The father and son were both transported to Australia 7 years apart.
So that's how, I guess, the Beans got to Australia from Dublin. Wow.
Correct. So this goes back to Thomas. This is actually his death notice in the Sydney Morning Herald.
Friends of the late Mr. Thomas Bean are respectfully invited to attend his funeral. To move from his late residence, number 57 Little Bilmore Street, Surry Hills. Weirdly, the family has always gravitated towards this suburb too.
Yeah, that's right.
There is a lot of criminal history in your family. And I always say that history loves crime, right? Because you can record it. But what history is not very good at recording is the circumstances around that crime.
Yeah.
They are emerging from a period of incredible poverty in Ireland. Shortly after Thomas leaves Ireland, Ireland enters what's known as the famine. And the famine devastated millions. But it also changed the world because millions of Irish people, like your ancestors, like my ancestors, they left. And where did they go? They went to places like America, Canada, and Australia. And so that legacy of survival, of reinvention, sometimes doing what you need to do to survive.
Absolutely.
Sometimes in a legal way and sometimes in a not legal way. That legacy reshapes your family. It reshapes Surry Hills because so many of them end up here in Surry Hills, but it also reshapes the nation. You know, Australia simply wouldn't be what it is today without the Irish. Certainly, I'm not sure any of us would be here anyway.
So we've got 4 generations here with a pretty well-documented criminal history, but it does appear that you two may have broken that cycle a little bit. As far as we know, do you have anything to disclose?
Now is the time to admit.
Is this an intervention?
I was going to say, do you know something I don't know?
I sort of see, you know, Surry Hills back then and now as a suburb of opportunity. Our relatives, you know, came here for opportunity. I left Dubbo to come to Surry Hills for opportunity, and it's nice to see that, you know, that feel and that vibe still exists in this suburb.
All right, we've got 45 seconds. We're pushing our butt back, folding at the hip, taking a bow like we're on stage. All right, we're gonna do reverse lunges, all right? Alternating reverse lunges.
Can you tell me how important dogs are in Surry Hills?
Very important.
When you have a dog, it's a ticket to this other society within Surry Hills, which is really fun.
There are some fantastic dogs, from Great Danes down to lots of little yappers.
Even in the morning, like walking to work, I see the same dogs with their owners.
You pat the dog and that's how you start a lovely conversation.
I would like to think you don't need to own a dog in Surry Hills, but
I think some people might make it compulsory to own a dog in due course.
you get tired of your elevator smelling of dog.
Dogs are, they gel us together.
Mirabelle. Voila.
This is the house that I grew up in.
This is the house you grew up in?
Yeah. Do you want to come in?
Very much so.
Let's go.
We're here at Sasha's mother's house to find out just how their family, who were once Russian nobility, ended up in Surry Hills.
This house is amazing.
Isn't it?
In the archives, we have found extraordinary documents on Sasha's family,
Hi, how are you?
Good, thank you.
Good to see you.
Nice to see you.
Right, so.
which could hold the key to unravelling this mystery.
So the records that we were able to find were incredibly difficult because of the Russian Revolution.
Yep.
Sasha's grandfather, Valentin, was born in Russia in 1906. He was the son of a middle-class railway engineer. But from the age of 11, that boy was not safe.
In October 1917, the working people of Russia, under the leadership of the Party of Communists headed by Lenin, carried out the Great October Socialist Revolution.
For anti-communists, which included the middle class like Sasha's ancestors, this was a dangerous time. Many were sent to labour camps and died, or needed to flee the country to survive. So how exactly did Sasha's grandfather escape the Russian Revolution?
This is where the story of your family gets a bit complicated. But it's also the beginning of how you end up here in Surry Hills.
Yeah. We do know that your grandfather, Valentin, did leave Russia in 1920.
Okay.
And we actually have some of his own words stating as to why he left on some documentation.
Really?
We do.
So my mum would never have seen this? As a political refugee from Russia in 1920, I cannot return as the Bolsheviks would immediately liquidate me or sentence me to forced labour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's your grandfather writing those words?
Yeah.
So he was only 14 when he left Russia.
Yep.
And when he left Russia, he first went to Poland.
And it was there in Poland that Valentine met Sasha's grandmother, Nellie. Nellie also fled to Poland with her mother, Sophie. Sophie is believed to be the daughter of a countess, and this is Sasha's connection to Russian nobility.
This is the Countess. I do not actually know her name.
So this is your great-great-grandmother.
Correct.
Then, in 1940, Sasha's mother was born. But the danger facing this young family was far from over.
The capital city of Warsaw slowly strangled under the German attack on all sides. The Polish troops were forced into bitter surrender as their will to fight disintegrated before the Nazi blitz.
By 1944, Nazi-occupied Poland was facing an increasing communist Soviet advance. And that meant Sasha's grandparents would have to flee again, this time to a refugee camp in Austria. And it was here, almost 30 years after Valentine escaped Russia, that officials from all the way in Australia selected him for their immigration program for displaced persons. Eventually, over 1 million post-war migrants from Europe would come to call Australia home, including Sasha's family.
I have here his settlement forms.
Wow. I've never seen a photo of that man. I honestly don't think my mother's got any photos of him at all.
So is that the first time you're seeing your grandfather?
I think that's the first time. I think that's the first time I've seen my grandfather. Wow. There's not photos of him at all. So look at him. He's got goofy ears. Yeah, wow. So that's my granddad.
So there's a picture there of Sophie too. Don't know if you've seen that one before.
No, I haven't. But she looks exactly like Nellie. Good. That's my grandma. Oh my God, look at her. That's my grandmother. Nellie looks like my mom, but I've never seen a photo of her like that at all. Never. Wow. That's my mother as a night. Wow. Margaret Reyes. She's got a very defiant look on her face, but she doesn't look impressed by any means.
When you look at that girl, knowing your mum, what do you see?
I see a survivor. She's my mum's a badass. She's a very tough, tough woman.
From a family of nobility to surviving a revolution to surviving Nazi-occupied Poland to coming out to Australia, do you remember when we were on the street and I asked you whether you felt safe growing up?
Yeah.
The reasons I asked you that is because actually for people of your parents' generation and your grandparents' generation, being a Russian immigrant, not just in Australia but anywhere in the world, was actually not safe.
Yeah.
Secret police would come round.
Yep.
They would try and coax people back. They would try and force people back. Just because you'd escaped Russia did not mean you were safe.
Yep.
So actually, for you to have ended up here in Surry Hills and had the kind of childhood that you had is an incredible achievement of survival, not necessarily on your part, but of those generations that came before.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I don't think that I would exist had they stayed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does knowing this help you understand anything about your family a little bit more?
The complex trauma, yes. Yeah, there's a lot of trauma in my family, but there's love there. And that's something that, you know, in our family, I know we do love each other, but we don't tell each other that we love each other. It's emotions are seen as a weakness, and I'm the black sheep in that because I'm like, I love everybody. But see, I've done 20 years of therapy.
Sasha's family history is incredible. You think about the different chapters of Russian history in particular that Sasha's story reveals. It's incredible. But the thing is, post-war migration changed Surry Hills, which meant you had all of these families and each of them carried stories just like Sasha's.
But Sasha's isn't the only family with hidden stories. Our research is uncovering secrets across this neighbourhood.
Well, I have suspicions about what my heritage might be.
I know that my mother was a bit naughty. She had many lovers.
I've always loved the ocean, so I'm thinking maybe a Viking warrior.
I'm not entirely sure if I am the child of my father.
Surry Hills is really diverse, so there's a bit of everything.
I would say that in numbers, it probably is Greek.
A lot of English. You see a lot of Chinese signs up. I've seen people playing mahjong.
A lamb on the spit in the backyard in Burke Street, you know, in the 60s for Greek Easter. And the Aussie neighbours, they thought it was a greyhound at one stage.
Surry Hills has always brought people from around the world. Back in the 1880s, you had European Jews and the Chinese. After you hit the 20th century, the Lebanese start to arrive. Then, after World War II, Italians, Greeks, Portuguese. By 1970, a whopping 70% of the kids enrolled in local public school here on Burke Street, 70% were either migrants or their parents were.
That 1970s Surry Hills, densely packed with working families, had its roots stretching back nearly 100 years. In the 1880s, Surry Hills was rapidly becoming an industrial and residential hub. Working-class families moved into new terrace houses close to factories and warehouses. But the Chinese population in particular grew rapidly here. Many found work as shopkeepers or market gardeners, furniture makers or cooks. But as their presence grew, so too did fears about a Chinese invasion. Brad has Donna's DNA results.
Hi, good to see you again.
Yeah, lovely to see you. How are you?
Good, how are you?
Born in Surry Hills, Donna was raised in the western suburbs and has returned to Surry Hills as an adult.
So tell me who we have here.
Well, this one is me.
Yeah.
In first grade. This one is me and my grandmother who raised me.
How did that come about?
My mother was really young when she had me, about 18, and then my mother died when I was 9. This girl was probably teased a lot at school for looking different, and so now I want to find out how all this connects to all that.
That is a journey that begins with your DNA.
Woohoo!
So, these are your results.
32% southern China, 28% Scotland, 24% Ireland, 9% England and northwestern Europe.
You can clearly see two very distinct elements of the world coming together in you.
The first person in Donna's family to migrate to Australia was her great-great-great-grandfather, William Lu Qing, from China.
So this is the family tree, and this is how you're connected. And we can step back through the generations to William Lu Qing.
Does that name mean anything to you?
I know that he discovered the 6th biggest nugget in Australian history.
You mean this nugget?
It looks pretty big.
That is a replica. So, I can tell you, in today's money, it would be worth over $2.8 million. But wait, it gets better. It's over 23 carats, right? So that's really pure. So if you melt it down, it could be worth even double that.
Oh my God.
Closer to $6 million.
Wow. But what happened to it?
We were unable to find a will. Sometimes when that occurs, it means because there isn't really a lot of stuff to distribute.
There's no inheritance, so.
Not that we've been able to find.
There's still time. That's really cool.
6 years after William found that nugget, we know he moved his family to Sydney, into a terrace in Smith Street, Surry Hills. William worked as a merchant and interpreter, but this was a time when the Chinese community was under attack. In 1878, 10,000 white Australians joined an anti-Chinese rally in Sydney's Hyde Park. A mob attacked a large furniture-making workshop and tried to set it alight. This wasn't an isolated incident. But where does Donna's ancestor fit within this chapter of Australian history?
Well, we've done some digging, and William Luching is an incredible character in the history of this country. And actually, here in Surry Hills, he becomes a community leader. He writes to newspaper articles, talks publicly, arguing for Chinese people to be treated with humanity.
A veteran Chinaman's few remarks. To the editor of the Daily Telegraph, Sir, I am one of the oldest naturalised British subjects in Australia. I would implore all true-born Christian native Australians to be kind to those of us who are aliens amongst you and who are seeking for means of subsistence. Treat us not as beasts, as I have seen some of us treated. What we ask for is common justice. From the press, I would ask impartial treatment. The truth we can bear. Yours, William Luching, 47 Smith Street, Surry Hills. Wow, that is so cool.
Here is a man who stands with a foot in each culture.
Uh-huh.
He's very clearly part of the culture that he's adopted. So he's probably best placed to represent both sides of that story.
I'm just fascinated by it, I've got to say. To think that this man championed Asian, white Australian relations so far back in history, and that he's related to me is unbelievable. And then this little girl was feeling bullied at school. So it's pretty incredible.
Just watching Donna's face, you're reminded that all history is personal. When you follow an individual character like William Luching, suddenly you can see the tapestry of Australia and the role that Chinese people have played on this land. And the thing about Surry Hills is it's a community that is filled with people from someplace else.
Which brings us to our mass results, now in. We can reveal the secrets they contain about this neighbourhood.
I would be curious to discover just how much the migrant communities has shaped Surry Hills to what it is now.
Have we discovered any unknown connections?
I'd be shocked if I could find somebody that I am related to in this crowd.
Hello, Surry Hills. Welcome back. We have the results.
We're here in Surry Hills to finally reveal the results of our mass DNA testing.
I think it is a very primal need to have some kind of understanding of their biological makeup and history.
This is what the locals think is in their genetic makeup. 24% believe they have Irish ethnicity. 14% think they are Italian. 12% reckon they're Chinese. 14% believe they are Eastern European. 5% think they have Scandinavian ethnicity, and 3% believe they have African DNA.
If you have a green wristband, please meet us at the front.
First up, we are revealing the DNA results of an ethnic group that's been deeply woven into the fabric of Australia since 1788.
In your questionnaire, all of you said you were one ethnic group, Anyone want to take a guess at which ethnic group that is?
Irish.
Irish.
They've worked it out.
Now, here's a thought. Are you the only Irish people in the room, though?
I doubt it.
You don't reckon? If you've got lilac on your wrist, come on down to the front.
While 24% suspected they have Irish heritage, our testing has revealed that actually 48% of this cohort have Irish in their DNA.
Who's surprised?
We just found out, both of us.
Really, for the first time?
Yeah.
So, David, you have 50% Irish ancestry. And that all comes from your biological father's side of the family.
How are you feeling?
Irish.
Next up is an ethnicity that also has a huge influence on Australian culture.
Red wristband. Come on up.
While early immigrants from this culture arrived in the 1800s, the biggest wave of migration came after World War II.
David, what are you eating that the rest of them aren't? Because you're so much taller than everyone else here. David, do you have any guess what it is that combines you all?
Italian.
Yes, indeed, you are all Italian, or at least you have Italian ancestry.
14% thought they had Italian ancestry, which was close. It's actually 15%.
One of the very common vocations for Italian migrants to Australia was to set up a fruit shop. And Madalena, you have a bit of a history with that.
Oh, yes, yes. We had a fruit shop on Crown Street forever. My mum and dad were there forever.
So you remember the fruit shop fondly?
Oh, absolutely. I still serve in the fruit shop, yeah.
Wait, do you remember her family's fruit shop?
Yeah. I remember him in our house all the time. Mum used to feed him.
There we go.
That's why he's so tall.
That's why he's so tall. Mum would be either making pizza or pasta or steak or whatever was on the menu. Everyone ended up coming into the shop to buy something and never left.
If you have a yellow wristband, come meet me at the front.
I was supposed to come that way. I would be very surprised if I wasn't 100% French.
Jean-Marie?
Oui?
Any guesses? What might link you all together?
Absolutely not.
You all have DNA that stretches back to the African continent. I feel like it's more surprising for some than others.
Obviously, we all know that we come from Africa at some point in the very distant past. We're looking within the last 300 to 500 years, maybe, or perhaps even more recent than that.
Only 3% marked African ancestry, but the real number is actually 11%.
I thought that I was French. I didn't think that anyone in my background was adventurous.
Anyone else a bit surprised?
I've never, ever thought of that. Makes sense why I've got so much rhythm.
For you, does this come as a surprise?
Yeah. Yes.
Like, is there any part of your family history that you know of that would make sense to this?
No.
No?
No.
This mass DNA result is exposing all kinds of ethnicities.
I can confirm that you all have Chinese ancestry.
With Surry Hills living up to its reputation for diversity.
I'm guessing England?
Scandinavian. Michael,
yes.
Once again you are up here.
Yes.
Are you as shocked as you were the other times?
Pretty much. The African and the Scandinavian threw me. Like, I always felt a bit bland. I just find it a bit more interesting and exciting thing to tell people.
If you have a white wristband, please come to the front. I'm not going to lie, this is my favourite group.
Oh.
Tim and Narelle, you discovered recently that you have an amazing connection. Do you want to tell everyone what it is?
Yeah, we discovered through this process that we're actually cousins.
And not just cousins, you're related to somebody else.
Great old Aunt Kate Lee.
Oh, wow. Sorry.
For people that don't know, Kate Lee is infamous, something of a queen of the underworld. Knowing that, I can confirm that each and every one of you is related to a criminal. You all have convict ancestry.
Wow.
Yeah. And the simple reality is you can't tell the story of this land, both Surry Hills and Australia, without talking about convicts from the British Isles. Grey wristbands. Come to the front. I can confirm that you all have Eastern European DNA, and everybody nods furiously because it's not a surprise at all.
Originally, 14% believed they had Eastern European ancestry, but testing shows it's in fact 20% of our cohort.
So, Sasha. Hi. We spent some time with you and we learnt that your grandparents' migration to Australia was actually from an international refugee camp. When the Allies liberated Germany and other countries that were also under Nazi occupation, there ended up being between 10 and 12 million people that were displaced from their home country. There are 3 other participants in this group whose families have migrated here from IRO camps. So, Alessandro, your grandfather, Alexander, was in an IRO camp in Munich.
My grandfather had forged documents to say they were Polish, because that was probably the difference between going to a concentration camp and a refugee camp back then, because the White Russians and the Ukrainians were all going towards the concentration camps.
Tina, your mother Ruta was a young child, also living in an IRO camp.
Yep.
Lauren? Yeah. Your maternal grandfather, Antonin, he actually went to Canada from an IRO camp. You knew that one?
No, I didn't know he was from a camp. I just knew he needed to escape.
Yeah.
He was part of the underground in Czechoslovakia, so he was against the communist regime. They're wanting to execute him, so he needed to escape.
Lauren?
Yeah.
I can sense that you're feeling quite a lot at the moment.
Yeah. I think it's just growing up, I always used to ask my grandma so much about my grandpa. And, you know, she never would say much, and neither would my mom. And whenever I would ask my mom about it, she just said Grandpa would never want to talk about it. And so nobody ever pressed him. And I do know he lost some of his family on the way as well. So I think it was probably just a very traumatic experience for him, and it was not something he wanted to share with his family, because I think he was very proud of this new life that he had built, and he wanted to put that behind him, and he didn't want his family to have to, you know, think about or worry about what he went through to get to where he was.
That feeling that there are things that your parents and grandparents went through that they didn't share with you. I know, Sasha, that's something you and I talked about earlier in the week.
And hearing this, that they're keeping secrets, so I think it's a form of protecting the families.
I think they did a lot of stuff that they maybe weren't proud of as well, to get out of a situation.
These intergenerational traumas are not necessarily unique. They're something you have in common. Does that change how you feel about the past?
I think it's still hard, but feels nice to connect.
I think it also makes you appreciate the communities that have come here and established themselves.
Well, you've now got a community together with more than just ethnicity that binds you.
Instantly within that particular group, there was a deep connection and going, oh, so you've gone through this as well. It's putting validity to thoughts and feelings, particularly my family and my relatives. There's lots of trauma there that hasn't been dealt with.
So, the results are in. Let's see just how much Surry Hills knew about their ethnicity. Irish, Italian, Chinese, Eastern European, Scandinavian, African.
When we started this, we brought you all together, we asked you, how many ethnicities do you think there are in this room? And you said 45 different ethnicities. I can reveal that there are, in fact, 63 different ethnicities in this room, making Surry Hills the most culturally diverse place that we have visited in this show. Surry Hills, you are bound by so much more than just ethnicity. Your DNA, your story in this room, it illuminates the entire story of Australia. And so, Surry Hills, thank you all so much for being part of this. Now let's hang out. Well done. Well done. Come, you can get up now.
For me, I just never really knew exactly what was there, and I think that's been answered for sure.
It will open up doors to people that we wish we had have known years before.
This is just the beginning.
Next time, we are in Geelong, a port city that was the gateway to the nation.
Never knew they had left that much behind.
Well, this changes everything.
It does, doesn't it?
I feel like I'm dreaming. Who gets told stuff like that?